CBS News political contributor Bob Schieffer is here. This is the 25th election he has covered in his long, stellar career. Bob, do you like us saying that? This is the 25th election you covered. Do you like that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Because it means I'm still here.
Yeah.
I hope you say it's this 26.
76% of the voters think Americans are becoming more divided. You see all the politicians talking about unity there. So how do you see this election shaping up? What does it remind you of? Anything?
Not anything, really, but I think what we saw last night is the country is more deeply divided, I think, than probably it was after the election in 2016. And I don't know where this goes. I mean, I said before this election, I meant it sincerely and honestly, I didn't know how it was going to come out. I'd never felt that clueless about what was going to happen. But, you know, the conventional wisdom was that the Democrats were probably going to take the House. Republicans were going to hold the Senate.
They did.
And that's what happened. And now we're all talking about how surprising that was. And that's the part that I find kind of interesting.
When we hear politicians talk about unity in their acceptance speeches, we know that, you know, in a few hours that will be exchanged with reality. That used to happen in politics. People would have big fights and then they would work together. But that second part seems to have fallen away. What did they know and how did they do it in the past when they'd fight like cats and dogs and then actually do some business together? What can they learn that they might apply today?
Well, what has happened, John, I think, is that as the Republicans moved more to the right, Democrats moved more to the left. I mean, when I came to Washington, we had liberal Democrats and conservative Democrats. We had liberal Republicans and conservative Republicans. And it was the conservative Democrats and the liberal Republicans who could always get together and figure out a way to do something. Now, compromise, frankly, has become a dirty word. And, you know, everybody's talking about unity. I don't see any sign that there's going to be any unity. I think and I hate to be, sound like Scrooge here before Christmas, but I don't think the two sides are going to come together. I think we're in for a lot of gridlock.
Isn't it up to the president, though, Bob, to set the tone for that? He's already sent a tweet out this morning basically saying game on to the Democrats who want to challenge him.
Well, or
investigate him.
You know, this was really the first midterm that I can remember when a president didn't seem to want to expand his support, but motivate the people who voted for him in 2016. So I don't see that changing very much.
We have the greatest country in the world, but democracy is messy.
It is.
Founders knew that when they established democracy. Philosophers talked about it for centuries. But what we've seen also, too, is a more diverse House. There is a sliver of optimism there in terms of more women, more veterans, more people of color, more gay Americans, bisexual Americans that are going to be in Congress. Does that change how Washington operates?
Well, it should. And I think that's one of the things that we want to think about. I'm trying to figure out, John and I were talking earlier this morning, I don't know what to make of this. I'm still, but it really doesn't matter what I make of it. I think
Meaning the election in general.
The election in general. I think what matters is what the two parties and the party leaders make of it. I mean, if I were in the Republican Party right now, I would say we got to find some way to appeal to these women, because they're the growing force. And you know, if this is going to be a party just basically of old white men, that's a depleting resource. That's not going to do it. They're going to have to do something to broaden their appeal. If I were in the Democratic leadership right now, I would say, you know, what we need to do is find something in some way to help people. And you know, they're talking about health care and all that. I think that's important. But I think going into this saying our main objective here is to do all these investigations, I just don't think that's going to be a saleable thing. But, you know, we're going to see what happens, and we'll find a way. I mean, this is not the first time in our history that we've gone through a crisis like this. John Meacham has a wonderful book called The Soul of America, where he talks about the crises that we have survived. I think in some ways he may be a little bit optimistic about it, but I think we ought to think about that. You know, I ran across a quote the other day, and and I want to do this just because nobody ever quotes Martin Van Buren. Have you
well,
quoted
yes,
Martin Van
exactly.
Buren lately?
No.
Martin Van Buren said at one point, the government should not be guided by temporary excitement, but by sober second thought. I think if both parties could kind of keep that in mind, maybe it would be a starting point to getting back to where we know this country can be. This is a strong country. It's a great country.
Alas.
We've got to figure out a way.
Alas, Van
to work
Buren was a
together.
one-term president.
Thank you, Bob.
Exactly.
Wah, wah.